Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. One of the very first sessions that we've done since Catalyst. How many of you were at Catalyst? Raise your hand or put a chat. And yeah, do you have a good time? How many wish you were back at Catalyst? I do, because that was such a fun time. We're glad that you're here. Today we're going to talk about the HIA grant, right? You know, how $1,000 could kickstart your Honors in Action project this year. And we're glad that you're here because this is really kind of like the unofficial first step of doing an Honors in Action project, right? It'll help with the process of your planning and what you're going to do, and what your impact may be, and how that money is going to be able to help you through all phases of your project. My name is Patty Van Adder. I'm the Chapter Outreach and Development Coordinator here at PTK, and I'm joined today by Reagan Chastain, who's our curriculum designer. Dr. Susan Edwards, it says Associate Vice President of Honors Programming and Undergraduate Research, but we just say she's the queen of Honors in Action for Phi Theta Kappa. She will be talking to you today about this whole process. Aslana Quesada is our Student Engagement Program Coordinator. She's with us today. And Jennifer Stanford, our Associate Vice President of Program Implementation. So once again, thanks for joining us. Put any questions you may have as we go along in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end or as we go along. So I am really happy to turn this over to Dr. Susan Edwards to start the session.
Hey, thank you so much, Patty. And as Patty said, thank you all for being here. We're really excited that you're with us today, that you're interested in Honors in Action grants, particularly as a way to enhance your Honors in Action projects. And these grants are funded by the Mellon Foundation. And we're really excited about that. We're in our third year of the Mellon Foundation grant. And we are hoping to give away at least 150 of these this year. So again, we're really happy that you're interested. So here's some basics. There are going to be 2 grant deadlines this year. June 8th is the first one. So some of you may have been working on your Honors in Action projects and you're kind of into at least part of it. And June 8th is going to be a good deadline for you. I know that there are some chapters who are really working through things now, but a lot of chapters really start in the summer and very early fall on their Honors in Action grants. So we are going to have a September 14th deadline as well. Both of these dates are Thursdays, just to keep that in mind. So June 8th and September 14th. You can find the application online. Here is the URL. And I'm going to go through the application with you so that you know what to expect before even clicking on that application, although know that you can click on the application and look at the questions and then back out of the application so that you can go back later and complete it. So don't worry about clicking on the link to get to it. Now, because the Mellon Foundation funds these grants, there are some things that the money cannot be used for. And I'm starting with that because it's really very important for us, because we're responsible for facilitating the grant and making sure that we're doing what Mellon Foundation would like us to do because they've so generously funded us. So you may not use grant funds for travel, for food, and I know that's the big one because a lot of chapters would really like to use the money for food. We can't do that. That's a guideline by the Mellon Foundation. Hopefully the money will help you do other things you might spend money on, and then maybe your chapter can purchase the food with other funds. Supplies, and we always get questions about this. The Mellon Foundation names things like copy paper or printer paper, ink for your printers, pens, pencils, if you are using those kinds of things at all. So basically office supplies. There are other ways that you can use it that you could classify as supplies, but they're legitimate. And I'm going to talk about some ideas for how you can use those funds. And then you can't use the funds for conference registration fees. So travel and food and office types of supplies and conference registration fees, those are ways you can't use the funds. The great news is there are lots of ways you can use the Honors in Action grant funds. So let's take a look at that. So I know this print is a little bit smaller, but I wanted to have a number of possibilities that we talk about, and you may have some ideas that you can place in the chat as well. But one chapter, for example, selected a common book from its list of academic investigation sources and purchased it for an entire discussion group. It's a perfectly legitimate, very savvy thing to do. Some chapters have purchased journal articles for Honors in Action research. And notice that these initial things, you can use these funds up to $1,000 for any part of the Honors in Action project. And Patty mentioned that. So you can start using those funds for the research and investigation part of your project. We know that a common misconception is that you can use the funds only for the action piece of the project. So know that you can start from the beginning. And the reason that the chapters who have used the money to purchase journal articles for Honors in Action research is that sometimes journal articles do cost money. Sometimes your college libraries will be able to fund them, but sometimes they can't. You may have found the perfect article or the perfect book and your library doesn't have it. You can always purchase the book, for example, and then donate it to your library if you'd like to do that. But you're welcome to use the funds on those things. In fact, the Mellon Foundation is really pretty thrilled about that because it's an academic pursuit. You can purchase a copy of the APA Manual 7th edition, and we highly recommend this because we know that most students learn MLA citations. We use APA citations largely because we publish Civic Scholar, which is Phi Theta Kappa's Journal of Undergraduate Research, and educational researchers use APA citations. So if you're not really familiar with APA citations and you really want to have a source that really can tell you every single way or type of source you can use, and you want to know what those APA citations look at, put in your grant application that you'd like to purchase a copy of the APA manual, the 7th edition. I think it's about $35 on Amazon. Don't quote me on the price, but when I've looked recently, it's about that. So it's a small part of a grant, but it could be a really useful thing, particularly as you get toward the end of the year and the beginning of 2024, at the very end of the project when you're looking at your Honors in Action Hallmark Award entries. If you purchase it with your funds at the beginning of the project, you also will be able to write your citations as you do your research. It's best practice to be able to do that. So consider that. Some chapters have used the grants to award honoraria to faculty who help them brainstorm or help them develop the research question or help with academic research. A lot of research librarians do that. So you might consider rewarding the people who really have helped you beyond the chapter and other parts of the academic investigation part of the project. It could be an honorary, it could be a gift card, it could be that you've purchased some gifts. You can use funds to do that. And it's a great way to build connections to people on campus beyond the chapter. And later in the project, when you're developing collaborators for the action part of your project, as well as the academic investigation, you can do the same thing for collaborators who helped you. Where you can't do honoraria, and I'm mentioning this because we've had the question before, your officer team or Honors in Action team or your chapter advisors can't be paid for doing this. So the honoraria or the gift cards or the gifts are meant for people who are your collaborators, who help you with the project, even though they don't have to do that, but can really enhance your project when you get people who are expert on the subject. We've had chapters pay for museum visits during the academic investigation phase of the project. And we've had a chapter that, for example, paid for a virtual zoo visit in the action part of the project. And you can look at things like that that can help your Honors in Action project and enhance the project. And so, don't leave out things like museums or places that you can visit where you might discuss things with experts, and some of those places cost money. The grant can help fund that. We actually had small research related gifts. Now, I mentioned you can't give honoraria to chapter members, but for example, you can purchase books. You can purchase something that is academic and related to the Honors in Action project for people. Say you want to get chapter members beyond your officer team involved in Honors in Action. You may want to have some incentives to do that. And so you can use that as long as they are research related, academic related gifts. You can purchase and rent audio or video or scanning equipment for use in your Honors in Action project. We know that a lot of chapters do some audio work. We've had chapters do video work that they've then posted on YouTube or TikTok. And, this can enhance your project, can make it look more professional. You can also hire someone who has expertise to actually film something or help you with audio and rent equipment that will just kind of bump up your project and what you're doing. So consider those kinds of things. We have had chapters hire graphic designers to create marketing tools for the chapters designs or draft their designs. Say a chapter is working on t-shirts and really would like them to stand out, and they're going to make the project really shine in the eyes of collaborators and the people on campus, and they've gone to a designer to do the logo. So those kinds of things can all be funded by an Honors in Action grant. For event speakers, say you're doing an awareness campaign and people come in to speak for you in the action part of your project, you might want to purchase a gift or give a small honoraria for that. Design and purchase t-shirts to promote those. I've mentioned that with hiring the designer. We've had chapters also purchase the shirts with Honors in Action grant funds. A chapter, probably more than one, have hired a web designer to create an Honors in Action related web pages that helped enhance the project. That's perfectly legitimate. And I see a question, what about play activities for senior citizens? So for example, if you're looking at play activities, and this would be for senior citizens, or it could be for children or, regular adults, and you're purchasing games, you can do that. And you can also, there are some activities where you may have to pay an honoraria to the person who holds the copyright for the information. So one, for example, we had an ed forum at PTK Catalyst. It was based on Lego Man. And there is someone who created that and has copyrighted the activity. So that could be something you use with Honors in Action grant funds as well. So you may not know the action part of your Honors in Action project yet, because if you're in the beginning stages and you've got to do all the research and develop research conclusions first. But you can put some money in and say, that here are some things we think might work with the action part, or, we'd like to do the funds. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then it kind of goes with the question someone asked, how about play related things for senior citizens? We have had chapters who have created play toolkits for elementary school students, and placed some game and play related things in there, who have purchased things like yarn and knitting needles, where I guess you have to be careful depending on the age of the people you're working with. But you can do all those kinds of things. In terms of looking at the academic investigation and working with collaborators and networking, and when you get to that point, the action piece, the sky's the limit. I mean, your creativity can bring you in directions that chapters haven't gone before. So, think about what really will enhance our project? What's going to make a difference? Take a look at the Honors in Action rubric and see what maybe your chapter needs to do, and maybe where you've had some difficulty in the past, or you thought, oh gosh, if only we had $1,000. This is what we would do with that money. And write an Honors in Action grant application. So let's take a look at that. So here's the entire application. Of course, you're going to add words, but here are the things we need to know. Your chapter's name, the Greek name, the state in which your community college resides, and your region. And if you don't know those things, there is a directory online, so you can take a look. Well, I'm sure you know what state you're in. If you aren't sure what region you're in, you can take a look online. Your advisor's name and your advisor's email address. This is really important because you want to make sure that your advisor knows that you're planning to apply for an Honors in Action grant. And here's the reason, because a lot of colleges have restrictions on grants, or they have grants offices, and you may need to get permission to get the grant. You may need to work with someone on campus to write and submit the grant so that they're really aware that they know what you're doing. And we've run into that several times. So your advisor needs to know, because it's your advisor. We need that advisor email, because if the grant is awarded, the information will go to your chapter advisor. So we want to make sure that happens. And again, you want to check with your advisor to make sure, if you've got a grants office on campus or a grants director, that you are following protocols for your campus. For most chapters, that's not going to be a big deal, but for some chapters it is. And so make sure that you're looking at that. The amount requested, it can be any amount from $1 to $1,000. So, consider what you want. A lot of chapters will go for the $1,000, and they'll work on their budgets and get there. But we do award grants that are not $1,000. So don't let that stop you. If you work on your budget and you don't have $1,000 worth of things that you think you might need for your Honors in Action project and to enhance that project, go ahead and put the real amount on your application. It's whatever you need, up to $1,000, we certainly hope to provide. Then you want the names of your Honors in Action team members. That might be 2 people. That's okay. And having a small team is not going to prevent you from getting an Honors in Action grant. So you may not even know all your team members yet, but we want to know that you're thinking about your team and that you're developing an Honors in Action team. So make sure you've got their names, and it just asks for their names. It doesn't ask for email addresses or anything like that. So then the Honors in Action or Honors Study topic theme you've selected, because the first thing you do in Honors in Action project is you go to the Honors Program Guide and you look at the Honors in Action rubric. So you're going to select a theme that could change over the course of your project. Of course, we know that, but we want to know where you're starting and what theme you're working with now. We're not holding you to it, but we want to know that you're, again, thinking about that you're starting with the beginning, and let us know what theme. And then your Honors in Action research question. Same thing, you're basing your research question on the theme and the honors study topic. But, with research, sometimes those things change and you may have to alter that. That's okay. But we want you to be doing that now and thinking about your research questions. So that is part of the Honors in Action grant application. And then we have your research objectives, and we're just looking for 2 or 3 of your research objectives. And those can be things like, we're going to apply for an Honors in Action grant, which could be one of your research objectives. And, it might be something like, we plan to look at 10 academic sources. These are not difficult. And I noticed that Reagan, I think, was writing that you can look at Civic Scholar and get a sense of, what a research objective might look like. I will tell you that in the 2022 edition, if you look at National Park College's Honors in Action entry there, they've got really good research objectives. They've got 10 of them. You don't need 10. But you can take a look at national park colleges and see that, you know, they kind of follow the honors and action process, and they're all measurable. So they're very nice, and it'll give you a sense of what you might put for your research objectives. And that's going to help you really as you move forward with the honors and action project. Then you need 3 academic sources, and looky there, that APA citation, 7th edition. So you get that start on the APA citations. Admittedly, before you get your copy of the APA manual, but I noticed that that Reagan put that Purdue OWL helps as well. The manual is much more robust in terms of really looking at different resources and having them at your fingertips. But certainly for the purposes of the grant, using Purdue OWL works well. Make sure you get the citations. Make sure your sources are academic sources. So you want to start looking at what your sources might be. Again, they may change. You may end up having 8 other sources that are better sources, and in the end, that's what you use for your Hallmark Award entry. But we want to see some academic sources in the application. And then we want you to describe how you plan to use the funds to develop your honors and action project. So, you know, we want to know what you plan to do with the money and how you plan to use it. Again, that might change over time as you develop your project. We know that. But if you're working through some of these early stages of an honors and action project, you have some sense of how you'd like to use the money. And then there's a drop-down menu that just says, which of the following do you plan to achieve with your honors and action grant funds? And you can check all that apply, but you know, honors and action project planning, research support, collaborators outreach, and service or action after the academic research has been completed. You're going to check those boxes, you know, whichever fits with what you're doing with your proposed grant funds. And so that's easy enough to have a sense of what you plan to use your funds for. And then, you know, an explanation about how the honors and action project your team's going to accomplish with the funds will support your chapter engagement with Phi Theta Kappa's honors and action project or program. So again, how is this going to enhance it? How is it going to help you complete your project? We do ask for a final report that comes in February typically. So February 2024, if you are awarded the grant, you will get that information and get the final grant report. But just so you're thinking about it, that just, you know, what do you hope to accomplish? You're going to think about in the end what you did accomplish. And then we want to make sure that you keep a running tab of what you spend and that you keep your receipts, because those come to us as well, because we write a report to the Mellon Foundation. So this is the application. And any questions about the application itself? If you have some, put them in the chat, because I'm happy to answer questions. It's not a super long application, but it does ask for some detail, and you have time between now and June 8th or now in September 14th to really get those things done. So we have a lot of resources at ptk.org/honors. If you haven't taken a look at the honors program guide with the art and science of play, the guide is there. The planning rubric, again, those are really good tools to figure out, well, what are the stages of an honors and action project and what are we going to be doing? The process is really important for honors and action projects. And so the grants can help you get through some of those parts of the project and can help you enhance that. We have a journaling guide, very, very valuable. So you can take a look at that. And then some things to help you develop a research question. We have an academic sources guide if you're not sure what an academic source is. We have film resources if you want to use those for part of your project. They're not academic sources, although some of there are some documentaries in there that would be considered expert sources. And then we have Civic Scholar. And I see a question. Is it Katadin?
Katahdin. Yeah, that's great.
Katahdin. Thanks.
Thank you. Just real quick, I just wanted to ask if there was any benefit of a chapter applying for the June deadline versus the September. So like how many are being handed out for the June deadline and how many are handed out for the September one?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's no advantage. We would, we're going to give as many grants as we can give in both of those sections. So it really will depend on when you feel the grant funds will benefit you best. I should mention that when we get the applications in after the deadline, because our financial services department has us turn in all of the grant funding for checks at the same time, there's about a month's delay. So, you know, if you're working now and you know that you may want to use those funds, you know, but sometime between June and September, I would apply in June. If you think, well, you know, we'll probably use them later, it might be November before we use our funds, then September may be better for your chapter, but it won't keep you out of the funding. I'll say that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. We have the 2023 Honors Case Study Challenge up here too, and it's a resource. If you're just starting your Honors in Action project, one of the really great ways to look at the types of things that are out that are related to the art and play, which is our honor study topic, second year. The Honors Case Study Challenge, you actually use newspapers, and those aren't academic sources for the purposes of Honors in Action, but they're great discussion starters. And so the deadline for the case study challenge here is November 8th. And we give 4 $500 scholarships for winning honors case study studies in the challenge. And the case study challenge winners and honorable mentions get to go on stage at Catalyst for the Parade of Scholars. So you probably saw some, if you were in Columbus, you probably saw our honors case study challenge winners and honorable mentions. So, you know, consider that. It's a way to get talking and maybe even considering your research question for your academic sources, and take a look at that. And then of course we have Research Edge at getanedge.ptk.org. And so if you're not really sure about the Honors in Action process, or, you know, say you want to really work on getting better at it, I really recommend Research Edge. It's a short course, but it follows the process. It has lots of great information. And so, you know, you might take a look at Get an Edge, and, you know, you'd then be eligible to purchase some bling, some Phi Theta Kappa bling to show that you have completed Research Edge. So all of these things are there to help you get started with Honors in Action. And of course, you know, get started with writing a grant application, because we hope you are going to do that, and that you will get funded and it will make this. Great question. Is the Honors Case Study Challenge for individuals or chapters? And the answer is yes. It's both. So you can do that as an individual. You can do that as a chapter. We have had individuals win. We've had chapters win. I think last year, 3 of the 4 winners were individuals and 1 chapter. This year, 3 of the 4 winners were chapters, and there was 1 individual who won. So it does not matter to the selection committee. They're just looking for, you know, great case studies, and so it's not an arduous process, you know, and you might just win $500 for your efforts and help your chapter as you move along. Okay, Patty, do we move the next slide, please? All right, questions. So one of my favorite images from the Honors Program Guide, because who doesn't love a panda who's playing? What questions do you have that maybe I haven't answered, that we can answer about the action grants and the applications and the process?
Lauren, did you have a question? I see you have your hand up, but I don't know if it was for earlier.
If it's me, Lauren, no, I'm sorry. I put it up earlier. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And I apologize. I can't see everybody. So if you've got your hand up, just holler. I've got a question.
I'm going to stop sharing so that.
Okay. Yeah. The leftover funds. We do have chapters who have had leftover funds. What we do with that is that we have you put that toward your honors and action projects the following year, which doesn't mean you can't apply for another grant. We have one more year of the grant. But if you, for some reason, don't spend all your funds, that's what will happen. I have had a question about whether you can use it for your college project or other activities. The answer is no. And that's a Mellon Foundation regulation. This is meant for honors and action projects. So,
who's going to apply for June by the June deadline? I think everybody in this meeting is ready to apply by June, right?
Yeah, you can do this. That's why I wanted to show you the application questions. It's not a long application. It's just that we want you to be thinking about what you plan to do and how you plan to do it. And again, over the course of starting an honors action project and completing an honors and action project, those things can change. And we know that it's not a linear process. So don't worry about that. And I think Stacy and David both have questions. So Stacy, you're in my left corner, top corner. So I'm going to go Stacy first and then David.
Thanks. Me, Stacy, right?
Yes. You said
Okay.
Stacy Hopper, yeah.
I am just like, I'm trying to figure out, I haven't done this before. I'm brand new as an advisor and I'm trying to figure out the theme. So the theme goes from 2022 to 2023, right? So that'll be for this fall.
Yes.
Okay,
so
great.
We're working on the art and science of play. This is the second year. And so that's you get to not continue your project from last year because we start over every year. But we will go to a new topic in January of 2024.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry,
it's the art and science play
question.
For this. Yeah. No, it's great because David, did you say that was your question as well?
Yeah, that was I think I missed the first part of the meeting, and so I wasn't sure what exactly this year's honors and action topic, but that cleared it up. Yeah.
Yeah, January 1st through December 31st of this year, our honor study topic is a biennial one, so it always goes 2 years. I say always, so far, always and forever. It goes 2 years. You never know. And we're working now on the next one. And so, and I'm glad that you worked on the word jumble. We aren't going with play in the next 2 years, although it's a really exciting topic, the next one as well. So stay tuned. But we are looking at doing, some different visual graphics that we haven't done in the past before. And who knows, a jumble might be in there as well. The Honors Program Council really liked doing those. So what other questions do you have? I know I can't possibly have explained everything well. Remember, there are no dumb questions because it's exciting that you're interested in applying for these grants.
I have a question.
Sure.
When is the project due? And then I have one more question.
Okay. Honors and action projects are completed between January 1st and December 31st each year. So, and of course you can start at any time in the year. So, that's when the projects are due. And then the Hallmark Award entry, which is kind of the reflection piece of the project. So it's the last step in the project. Those are due in mid-January. And Jennifer, I know you're here. Do we have the date for 2024?
No.
January 17th.
Thank you.
It's basically the third Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's I figured it was third Wednesday. I thought, oh wait, no, I'm just not going to say the date because I'll say the wrong one and then yikes. So January 17th. So when you're working on your project, you want to finish the components of the project by December 31st. except for that Hallmark Award entry. Well, you can finish it in December, but you have until January 17th at 5 o'clock Central Time to submit your Hallmark Award entry.
Okay, and the last portion is that the honors and action paper is more than answering the questions that you have presented. The honors and action paper consists of more than just answering the question.
Yes, what I showed you was the Honors in Action grant application. So that's the application you submit to ask for the funds up to $1,000 to enhance your project. The Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry is a series of 11 questions, and you have 2,600 words to answer the questions, which sounds like a lot, but isn't a lot when you finish the project. So, you know, it's a matter of organizing and writing and editing the entry. And if you're interested in what they look like, again, take a look at Civic Scholar, because we have a lot of examples of award-winning entries in Civic Scholar, and they're very different from one another. So it'll give you a sense of what's possible there. David, did you have another question? Okay.
Yeah, so currently I am the vice president of scholarship at my chapter, and they kind of sent me over here to kind of scope things out. I kind of missed like the first 4 minutes, and could you help like provide a summary of this grant and just something I can explain to my chapter members what this is and what our plan is for it?
Sure. The grants come from Phi Theta Kappa, but the grants are funded by the Mellon Foundation. So your chapter can apply for up to $1,000 to enhance its Honors in Action project and any part of the project. And you probably heard part of that because we've talked about it after the very beginning of it. There are 2 deadlines. The first one is June 8th, and the second one is September 14th of this year. So it doesn't matter which of those deadlines you select. You can do either. So it just depends on sort of where you are in the process. There are some things you can't use the funds for. Mm-hmm. So travel, food, office supplies, conference registrations, all of that's on the grant application. In fact, you will have to check on the application that you've read and understand that you can't use the funds for those things. Mm-hmm. So, but hopefully you saw that there are lots of creative ways to use the funds and ways to enhance things. So that was the very beginning of the application.
And David, we are recording this and we are going to share this with everybody. And while I talk about that, I thought it would be a really good idea to just let everybody know we're going to have these sessions throughout the summer. One will be specifically on the Honors in Action project. But I think you guys are overachievers and you would probably benefit from today looking at the last year's session that we did on Honors in Action, and everybody here can access this. I'm going to share my screen real quick so you'll see it. If you go to Get an Edge at ptk.org, you will see this, right? And that's where you see the edges. Mine looks a little different than yours, but what I want you to look for is the Phi Theta Kappa Program Resources tab. And this is for advisors and members can access this. If you click here, you will see all of the sessions that we did last summer, and there you go, getting started with Honors in Action. You can review it. It's the same folks. You'll see Susan talking all about Honors in Action in there, and you'll get a better understanding if this is your first time doing Honors in Action. There isn't one on the grant, but it will be there as soon as we get it processed and uploaded to that spot. So you'll see that later on in the week, but this is a great place to take a look, especially college projects. Hallmark Awards were from last year, but if there's any of these are still relatable to this time of year at this time. So remember, go to Get an Edge at ptk.org and scroll down and look for the Phi Theta Kappa Program Resources, and you will be able to access those past sessions.
That's great. And so especially if you're just getting started, you'll be able to see sort of what those first steps are and where the resources are, so that you're ready. And again, if you're just getting started, don't let that stop you from applying for an Honors in Action grant, because you can think big and think, what would enhance our work here? What can help us do this better? And we get the final reports from Honors in Action grant recipients, and almost to a chapter, they say, we couldn't have done this in the same way without this money. So, we wish that for you as well. Any other questions or comments from anyone on the student engagement team or any participants?
So if it's the same theme as last year and someone submitted a program last year, would they have to pick a different theme for this year?
They have to start the process again. So the theme might be the same, but the sources, the research objectives, the research question, those things should be different, because you've got a different team working on it. And Honors in Action is all about intentional research and action. And so we want teams to really move through the process. So it's different from a college project where you might actually be working on something for a second year. Honors in Action, you start again every year. Again, doesn't mean that a team can't do the same theme, because you can do a theme and look at it in a completely different way from the team before you. In fact, probably will if you have different team members. So you'll see that if you look at Civic Scholar I want to say it may be the 2020 edition, could be 2021, but there are a couple of chapters that really pick the same theme and ended up with kind of similar actions, but you can read through the entry and see the process was different. What they did, their research was different, their communities were different. And so, they can look at the same types of things and come out in different ways. So starting again, but you can use the same theme. The other pieces, you want the team from this year to really work through the process. That's what we want to do. And thank you, Patty, for pulling up Civic Scholar. You can see that we have 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and we are working on the latest edition of Civic Scholar. Maybe not as we speak, because I'm talking to you, but we're working on it right now. It's always exciting. Yeah, I see another question.
Hey, since we have access to this amazing resources and the wisdom that you all have with your experience, I was talking to my advisor today. We actually had a PTK meeting, and she was mentioning how the format on like those flyers that have past students or chapters work is very nice and it looks really good, but chapters don't need to do that when they submit it, because the formatting goes completely away. So like you could throw a lot of effort at it and then you just copy and paste it. So is that true, that you just copy, like you have to paste it into the website and then you don't get to do all your nice formatting or anything?
Yeah, there are a couple of things when you work. The Honors in Action Hallmark Award entries will actually be submitted in Moodle. And so it's not totally compatible with Word. So yeah, when you look at Civic Scholar, we've edited that. Our designer has worked with it. So it didn't look like that in its original form. It looks, very professional, and it had probably about 5 or 6 people who have worked on it to make it look that way. So what will happen, if you're working in Word, things like bullet points may not come out in Moodle. You can't in Moodle, you can't do certain things with your APA citations. You know, for example, APA, almost all citations, but APA citations, you outdent and then indent. You can't do that. So, you know, it's not counted off because you can't do that. Now, other things like capitalization and URLs, those all count because that has nothing to do with Moodle. So, you know, you just want to make sure that they're, you know, in the best possible shape. You can do a couple of things. One is that you can work in Notepad, which is more compatible with Moodle. So if you've got Notepad, you know, that might be one opportunity. The other thing is you want to leave time not just for editing when working in Notepad or in Word, but you can go back into Moodle and check and see. So for example, if you've used bullet points and all of a sudden they look wonky, you can fix that in Moodle. So leave a little bit of time before submitting so that you can go in and take a look at that. But yes, always listen to your advisor. Your advisor was correct. Jennifer has mentioned you can upload honors in action to up to 3 pictures, flyers, and graphs. And, you know, it can be really wonderful. You don't have to do that. They're not judged separately. But I will say that, and it was a bit of a giggle. There was a chapter, and a lot of chapters did this, so I'm not mentioning which chapter it was, but a chapter mentioned in their entry, the written part, how they worked with seniors and they played games and how interactive it was. And one of the images they uploaded, all chapter members were standing in the back of the room staring at the senior citizens. Don't do that. If you know that you said this, don't pick the picture that goes against what you wrote, because clearly they were not interacting with anybody, not even each other in the photo. So, you know, you want to use them to enhance. You have to write about the pictures. So, you know, you're explaining those things, or the figures, the flyers, but, you know, use them so that when somebody's looking at it, they say, oh yeah, I read about that. That's great. And if you don't have those things to back it up, you don't have to use them. We've had award-winning chapters not use them. And you'll see that in Civic Scholar as well, that there are chapters who don't have images. They didn't submit any, but again, since they're not judged, it was fine. Yes, another question.
So I was actually just reading that about college projects as well, how you can submit up to like 3 photos, have the flyer and everything like that. I was curious though, because flyers can sometimes have images on them. And is there something against like combining multiple of those to like maximize it? So like if you made a flyer with multiple images, can there only be 3 images in one flyer? Or like, are there kind of special rules that you have to keep in mind, or is it? Yeah,
I will say for honors in action, we have definitely had chapters who've submitted, you know, a page with multiple photos on it, you know, or multiple things. Jennifer, who is the queen of College Project, for College Project, what have you seen?
We definitely see chapters do that. I mean, the flyer itself, it can have several images. That's not a problem at all. But what we really like to do is to be able to use pictures that chapters have uploaded. So it doesn't help if you just have a PDF and it has a bunch of pictures on it. It kind of defeats the purpose. But it's, you know, and we really, as Susan said, these are not scored separately. So we're not deducting points or adding points. But, you know, again, it's meant to illustrate what you've included in your entry.
Yeah.
But yes, it's the flyer itself can have multiple images.
Right. I think it's great. The other thing that we see in honors in action sometimes is that people will add an image that is something copyrighted by another author, for example. We can't use that in Civic Scholar. So, you know, we'd love to have things that are designed by, or, you know, you used your honors in action grant to have a designer design a flyer for you, and you write about that in your honors in action Hallmark Award entry, and then we see the flyer. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's really pretty exciting that we can see.
I appreciate you bringing up the point about reusing the images. And I think that was really important for me to understand more fully. So I appreciate that. Is it true then that people that submit the Honors and Actions project, the images that may be included in the program, I forget the exact name of it, that shows the different examples of them, are those examples of images that they submitted that you reused and put in? Okay, that is great to know.
Yeah, if you look at Civic Scholar, and you will see, I know in the last 2 editions, maybe the last 3, you're going to see images. The chapters submitted those images, and none of them are things that are copyrighted. They were created or photographed by the chapter and turned in there. And then we don't use everything that's submitted, even for the award-winning entries. We use as many as we can, and of course, the more interesting and colorful, that helps too. And so what would it take to get published in Civic Scholar? Oh, that's a great question, David. A number of the top entries are published in Civic Scholar. So you want to submit your Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry. They're scored by judges. And then we look in the end at some of the top entries. And so, it isn't necessarily the top 18 entries, because, it's a journal and we're looking for reader interest. And so all of them are award-winning entries. And I can say easily that all of them scored above 90, somewhere between 90 and 100, which is the top score. And Changemakers, Jennifer edits Changemakers, which is the Journal for College Projects.
Yes, and that's the same is true for that journal, that we're looking for diversity in the project topics. So college project can be anything related to the college's mission. So there is a lot more diversity, of course, because of that. But also some geographic diversity. And so we want to highlight as many chapters as we can in each of the geographic divisions of Phi Theta Kappa. But, it really is, as Susan said, we want it to be interesting to the reader. And so there could be several projects that are fantastic, but they may have had the same action component. And so we may choose one as, representing of that action. So, but you don't have to submit it separately. So just to clarify that, you're not submitting, there is, on the Honors in Action and College Project Hallmark Award entry, a chapter can opt out of consideration, but we rarely have anyone opt out, but that's exactly what we use to choose the entries for the journal.
It's great. And so my recommendation would be, of course, to submit an Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry, and to make sure you build into your timeline that you have a lot of time for talking about what you plan to put in the entry, writing the entry, and then editing the entry. That you'll see that the entries in Civic Scholar and Changemakers have been edited, not just by us, because we do minor editing in the journal. So, but by the chapters who have really spent some time working it. And think of everything. I know in Honors in Action, from the consideration of the honors study topic and picking a theme through submitting your Honors in Action Hallmark Award entry. Think of that as the project in all of its pieces. I think if there are any other questions, we have just a couple of minutes, and I'm happy to answer any more. And the student engagement team is happy to answer them as well.
I would really encourage you, especially if you've never been involved in a project, to start by reading Civic Scholar. It'll give you a big overview of what has been done and just give you an idea. So I would start with that. And then, of course, I'm going to promote Research Edge because I think it gives you Honors in Action specifically is a process. It's a step-by-step, fairly linear process. Not that sometimes you don't have to, as my chapter used to say, we used to punt quite a bit because we get headed down one road and it didn't quite work out. But the Research Edge will take you through every single step of the process. And so I would encourage anyone who is going to be part of the, whether they're going to be part of the research team, help with the action part or help with the write-up. Research Edge is a great way to get familiar with the process itself.
It's true. And I will tell you that after the Hallmark Award Gala at PTK Catalyst, I actually had someone come up to me, a chapter advisor, and say, oh my gosh, it really is all about the process, because their chapter had won a Hallmark Award for the first time. So it really is all about the process. And I just saw, I know, David, you have a question, and I just saw in the chat, Hallmark Award scores are scheduled to be sent to chapter advisors on the week of May 22nd. So they're coming, they're arriving. And David?
Yeah, okay. Just something I heard. What would be like an action plan to start from right now? I know I heard about the reading Civic Scholar and doing Research Edge. I guess what would be something that our chapter can start doing right now?
Those are good places. The place to start with Honors in Action is to look at the Honors Program Guide, which is at ptk.org/honors, because that's what introduces the art and science of play. There's an overview, but there are also introductions for every one of the themes. The other thing to look at is look at the overarching question for each theme. So you'll see the theme title, and then there's a question beneath that. That will tell you what the theme is all about. And my example is, theme 7 is play it forward. And for chapters who don't read that question, what do you suppose they think the theme is about? You guys know this because the Honors Program Council, we were being clever and maybe too clever for our own good. What do people think that's about?
Pay it forward.
Yeah, pay it forward, right?
L.
Yeah, they get rid of that L. What the overarching question says is that how does play serve as a catalyst for invention, innovation, and there's a third word, epiphanies. So it's actually all about how play really fosters that kind of inventive mind or innovation and how that works. So look at the overarching question. It's really important. If you're really interested in something and you can't answer that question in some way, check another theme, because another theme may be where you want to go. So look at the then get the Honors in Action planning rubric, which is also the judging rubric. So the rubric outlines the process, and you can check right from the beginning about the types of things you want to consider as you're planning your project. And then Research Edge walks you through that. Civic Scholar, just if you want to jumpstart ideas and see what award-winning entries look like. But that's where I'd start. Honors Program Guide, the rubric, Research Edge would be the 3 tools that are really important initially. And there, Jennifer's holding up, if you see Jennifer, a copy of the Honors Program Guide. There are hard copies, but also it's available in a PDF form online, and you are welcome to download that, to print it, whatever you want to do, so your team is looking at that. And Patty, I'm going to turn it back over to you. And thank you. Know that it's susan.edwards@ptk.org, and I'm happy to answer your questions about Honors in Action and Honors in Action grants anytime. So reach out to me.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining. Such great questions. This was an outstanding session. Thanks for joining us. And always know that even along the way, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. You have Susan's email. Have your advisor contact us as well. We're happy to meet with you and go over these things. And if you're getting ready to, get started, take a look at what's on PTK Edge under the program resources, and you can look at last year's. But we will be in touch really soon about our upcoming schedule of sessions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.